Welcome to Sleep with Myth. Close your eyes and let the world fade away. Tonight we drift beyond time, where gods dream and stories remember their light. Before there were rivers upon the earth, there were rivers in the heavens. They did not run with water. They ran with a brightness so gentle that darkness leaned near to hear it, and in leaning near discovered it could listen. This is the story of how the skies, full beyond bearing, learned to pour. It begins with a silence that everyone mistook for peace, and a fullness that everyone mistook for strength. The sky had been a cathedral of stars for ages beyond counting. It was not proud, it was simply vast. Its vaults were stitched with constellations that held their places like vows. Between the stars lay corridors of night where quiet could walk, and where the first dreams learned to take their steps. There was no storm there, no hunger, no fear, only order, a perfection so complete that nothing dared move. But perfection is a jar with a lid, and one day, the lid remembered it was only a lid. The sky began to feel heavy in places it had never noticed, behind the bright arches of constellations, under the ribs of the great spiral where distant suns crossed like braided fire. A pressure grew, not painful yet, but insistent, like a hymn that refuses to end. At first the sky tightened, as anyone does when they think strength is a matter of holding on. The stars burned more cleanly, the darkness stood more still, and the weight inside the sky became a deeper stillness that carried its own sound, a note so low that only eternity could hear it. The sky asked its oldest neighbor, the void, "Is there something wrong with me?" The void, who never lied and never hurried, answered, "There is something right with you that you have not yet practiced." "What practice?" asked the sky. "Letting brightness move," said the void. "I cannot," said the sky, startled. "If I let my stars move, what becomes of the stories they shape?" "Stories," said the void, "are not prisons, they are doors." For a long while the sky said nothing. It stretched from horizon to horizon like a held breath. The galaxies within it made no complaint. They did not know how. They had been named and placed and honored for eons. They were content to be admired. Only the unnamed lights trembled, the small, quiet sparks that had never found constellations to call their own. They felt the pressure most. They whispered to each other in a language softer than starlight. "What if we are not meant to endure as statues?" In the heart of the sky lay a region no chart had ever mastered, a calm where the oldest light slept like a lake. There, a brightness stirred, not a star, nor a god, but a possibility that had never been asked its name. It rose slowly, the way daylight grows inside a closed room. The closer it drew to awareness, the more the sky ached to widen. The brightness asked the sky, "Why do you keep me?" The sky answered honestly, "Because I thought keeping was loving." "And if loving is releasing?" said the brightness. The sky trembled. In that tremble, the constellations quivered like lyres touched by rain. The brightness continued, "You have been a vessel so long that you forgot you are also a vein. Let what is within you flow, and you will discover you do not end where you thought you did." "How do I begin?" asked the sky. "Begin by remembering that edges are agreements, not walls." The first shift was small. A cluster of faint stars loosened their elbows and leaned toward one another. The dark around them sighed, surprised to be included. Where they touched, light did not flare. It softened, as though it had found a way to rest while still being light. A thin glow gathered in the space between them, a thread so fine it could have been a thought. It stretched, wavered, then held the first current. The sky felt it and gasped. I am flowing. The void, pleased, kept still so as not to startle the newborn stream. The thread of light bent toward a neighboring cluster, and another, weaving a path across the vault. It did not erase the stars. It walked among them, inviting, collecting, listening. Wherever the thread passed, stars relaxed their perfect geometry and became generous. Even the darkness learned a new skill. It reflected without stealing. The brightness whispered, "Give the current your blessing." "What is a blessing?" asked the sky. "A permission that remembers," said the brightness. So the sky spoke not with words but with widening. Its dome loosened, its distances grew supple. From east to west, though east and west had not yet been born, the vault relented. More threads gathered, braided, and continued. Some descended from the high cold, thin and keen as silver reeds. Others rose from the low deep, warm as breath. Where the braids crossed, eddies of light formed, small whirls that spun without urgency, holding shape while refusing to harden into law. Below the sky, a place waited that did not know it was waiting. A broad plain of gentle dark that had once been only quiet. The quiet had learned to cradle fallen lights in older days, keeping them without owning them. Now, feeling the currents gather above, the quiet lifted a little, the way a lake swells when it sees rain approach. It did not reach for the light. It made room. The first confluence arrived like a dream touching shore. A ribbon of brightness bent downward, kissed the quiet, and did not go out. Instead it spread, thin as breath upon a mirror, and the quiet learned a new word, shimmer. The quiet liked it and practiced, shimmering a little more, then a little less, until the light lay upon it like a promise. The sky asked, almost shy, "Does it hurt you?" "It fills me," said the quiet. Emboldened, the currents multiplied. They unraveled from constellations, swept through gulfs, gathered the overlooked, and invited the ordained. They threaded through the backs of the old patterns and turned them from cages into bridges. The hunter put down his bow and discovered he was also a fairy. The swan drifted from its static flight and became a harbor. The great river that mortals would later name watched, astonished, as it became not a boundary but a beginning. But practice calls forth resistance. The guardians of fixity woke from long patience and spoke with voices like cold brass. They said, "Hold, you are the sky. Your duty is to keep. Without you, order collapses into hunger." The sky listened, because the guardians were not wrong. They were simply unfinished. "I am keeping," the sky answered. "I am keeping the motion that was always mine." "And the names?" the guardians asked, alarmed. "If stars move, how will mortals know their seasons? How will sailors find their way?" "By listening to what moves," said the sky, "not only to what stands." The guardians conferred in stern silence. They disliked newness that asked them to soften. But when they looked down, they saw something they had never seen. The mortals that would one day be. Still seeds, still sleeping, turning in their sleep as if they already knew the music. The guardians sighed, their brass warming by a degree, and stood aside to watch. The sky bent lower over the quiet. Its currents, now certain, pressed in gentle waves. One wave pressed against another and found a rhythm. The rhythm found a contour. The contour found a direction. "What is that?" the sky asked, delighted. "A shore," said the brightness. "Have I made land?" "You have made a listening that holds," said the brightness. "Call it what you like. Names will come later." On that trembling shore, light pooled in shallow basins and learned tenderness. It did not glare. It bestowed. It did not command. It convinced by warmth. Colors that had never existed unrolled like silks. Honeyed gold, dusk blue, the pink of a promise, the green of a breath that has just remembered itself. The quiet reflected them all without spending them. Then the current arrived. It did not come from one star or another. It came from the agreement between many, from the yes that traveled through the sky like dawn traveling through windows. It wore no crown and carried no sword. It introduced itself by moving in a way that made other things want to move with it. "I am only a direction," said the current when the sky asked its name. "Is direction a who or a where?" asked the sky. "Both," said the current. "I am what happens when you stop being a ceiling and become a river." The sky laughed softly at that, the first laughter it had ever managed, a sound like wind discovering chimes. "Then teach me more," it said. The current taught by doing. It ran its hand, if a current can have a hand, along the inner ribs of the heavens, and lights woke as if tickled. It swept downward and the quiet lifted, upward and the old patterns loosened, outward and the space between things became invitation. Under its guidance, the braids of light found channels and became streams. Streams braided and became rivers. Rivers bent, met, and became a wide, slow wonder that no metaphor could contain. "An ocean," the brightness said at last, granting the word like a blessing. "Not of water, but of light." "It is too much," the sky said, overwhelmed and overflowing at once. "I will empty myself. Then you will learn a different fullness," said the brightness. "The fullness that flows." The guardians of fixity, who had feared collapse, watched the ocean gather and were surprised to feel steadier, not less so. The ocean did not erase the stars. It connected them. It did not drown the dark. It taught the dark to gleam. Navigation, they realized, would be easier, not harder, for those who learned to follow motion. A single spark could now find the way across vastness by listening to the direction in which the ocean hummed. Far below, where shores began to remember themselves as places, a small presence woke. Not light, not dark, but the feeling of standing between them. It lifted from the shimmer and took the shape of a child's curiosity. "What am I?" it asked the sky, the quiet, the current, and the brightness all at once. "You are a listener," said the quiet, joyful. "You are what happens when reflection decides to walk." "Walk where?" asked the listener. Along the margin of miracles, said the brightness. The listener placed a foot upon the new shore and did not sink. The sky leaned close, a little afraid of breaking what had just begun. But the current steadied the place with a soft rush. The listener looked into the ocean and saw not a face but a future, shapes of song and settlement and story, flowing out of the sky's generosity. I feel pulled, the listener said. Follow it, said the sky. The pull is the path. The listener walked, and with each step, the ocean's surface learned a new texture. Ripples for wonder, furrows for grief, gleams for joy, a hush for rest. The sky watched and discovered another practice, yielding without leaving. It poured and remained, expanded and became intimate, touched and was not diminished. When night, which had never been absent, only unnoticed, gathered its velvet to watch more closely, the ocean of light did not resist. It darkened a little, like a candle cupped by caring hands, and in that gentling, its constellations were born again. This time not as fixed emblems, but as crossings where currents greeted one another. The brightness spoke once more. You have done well. I only stopped keeping, said the sky, surprised to find itself peaceful at last. That is a beginning, the brightness said. Next you will learn to bless what leaves you by knowing it is still you. The sky looked down at its ocean and understood something it could not yet say. That flow is a kind of belonging, and that what moves away is how we discover our size. Above, the guardians of fixity laid down their brass and took up softer instruments. They began to measure not only the positions of lights but the kindness of their currents. They invented patience. They discovered joy. Below, the listener learned to listen more widely. It crouched at the edge of the light and placed its ear to the hush. Inside the hush it heard a map, not of places, but of promises waiting to be kept. It looked up at the sky, which was now revered and radiant, and it smiled as children smile when they finally recognize a lullaby. What now? The sky asked the current. Now, said the current, you keep learning to let go. And after that, said the current, you keep going. The ocean of light drew a long, steady breath. Every star felt it and softened. Every darkness felt it and brightened. The sky, once ajar, was a vein, pulsed, and the listener, small as a question and large as a world to come, began to follow the shining margins toward a horizon that had just remembered it had room for arrival. The sky had learned to release. Its light no longer burned to be seen, it flowed to be felt. The ocean beneath it shimmered with that gift, each wave a memory of what had once been held too tightly. But something inside the flowing brightness began to stir. A thought that was not quite thought, a rhythm that was not yet song. The sky felt it move within the rivers of light that now crossed the heavens, a pulse forming between silence and motion. The current was awakening. At first it had no name, no face, no direction. It was simply a tremor, a long sigh carried across the infinite vault. But with every turn, with every soft collision of brightness upon brightness, the tremor grew into awareness. I am moving, the current whispered. The sky heard and smiled. Yes, it said, you are what I have become. The current did not yet understand words, but it understood tone, the way sound carries warmth. It followed that warmth until it reached the sky's heart, where stars were born not by command, but by kindness. There it paused, feeling the echo of its own voice for the first time. "I am not the sky," it said slowly. The sky listened, calm as dusk. "No," it replied. "You are the part of me that refuses to stay still." "Then what am I for?" asked the current. "To remember that stillness and movement are the same breath," said the sky. And so, the current continued to move, weaving through galaxies and dreams alike. Everywhere it passed, things that had been silent began to hum. Planets turned more tenderly. Comets slowed to listen. The light learned to ripple like laughter between companions. The void, ever the quiet witness, watched and wondered. "You give the sky a voice," it said. The current replied, "No, I am the voice that was waiting to be heard." As it traveled, the current noticed that it could feel. Each wave of light that brushed against another brought a sensation. Joy, sorrow, curiosity, longing. These were not emotions as mortals would know them, but the seeds of such things, forming where infinity touched itself. The sky, proud and humble all at once, spoke softly. "What you feel now is how creation begins." "Then what is creation?" asked the current. "It is the moment something dares to speak what it already knows." The current pondered. "And if I speak, what will I become?" The sky smiled. "Whatever listens." And so, the current spoke again, not in words but in vibration. It sang across the fabric of the heavens, a low, melodic resonance that gathered clouds of brightness and shadow. It shaped waves of sound so pure that even the dark began to shimmer. From that song, color was born, not from pigment but from emotion. Blue from calm, gold from wonder, violet from awe. Each hue became a frequency of memory, each tone a promise of return. The brightness, that ancient possibility that had once awakened the sky, heard this song and drew nearer. "You have found your own voice," it said. "I learned it by listening," replied the current. "And what will you do with it?" asked the brightness. "I will give it away," said the current. The brightness smiled. "Then you will never run dry." For 1,000 eternities, the sky and the current conversed through movement. The sky inhaled stillness, the current exhaled creation. Between them, galaxies spun like lanterns hung in the breath of divinity. But the more the current gave, the more it began to notice an ache, not of loss, but of distance. The farther it flowed, the fainter the sky's voice became, could feel the warmth behind it fading into echo. "Am I leaving you?" it asked. The sky answered, "You are carrying me." The current hesitated. "Then why do I feel alone?" "Because to bear what is infinite," said the sky, "you must learn to miss it." The current slowed, uncertain. It looked down, though down had no meaning, and saw the ocean of light below. Its waves gleamed like 1,000 sleeping souls. The current reached out, touching their surfaces with care. Each touch sent ripples through both sea and sky, and in those ripples, something new appeared, reflection. The ocean spoke then, its voice deep and clear. I have heard your song, and I have waited for your shape. The current paused, surprised. You know me? I dreamed you, said the ocean. You are the motion I longed to remember. The sky listened from above, silent and bright. Its heart swelled to see its child find its mirror. The current asked, if I am your dream, what are you? I am your destination, said the ocean, and you are my return. They touched again, and the boundary between them blurred. The light that had been descending began to rise, the waves folding upon themselves until up and down were only gestures of affection. Between them, sound became rhythm, rhythm became pulse, and pulse became the heartbeat of existence. The brightness watched and whispered, and so the divine learned to echo. From that echo came time, not a clock's time, but awareness of sequence. Light flowed, returned, and flowed again. Moments learned how to follow. Eternity began to breathe. The sky whispered to the current, do you see now? Flowing was never leaving. It was the way home. And the current, newly wise, replied, then every end I meet will be a beginning I have already known. Below, the ocean shimmered in agreement. Above, the stars exhaled as one. And between them, the current sang, a hymn of movement, love, and luminous belonging, filling all of creation with a sound that would one day be remembered as dawn. The ocean had always looked upward, not because it envied the sky, but because it could not forget the face that had poured itself into it. Every wave that lifted was a kind of reaching, every shimmer was a kind of memory, and every reflection, of star, of cloud, of radiance, was the ocean's way of whispering, I remember you. The sky heard these whispers, smiled but from far away. For now, light had learned to travel. It did not stay in one place. It moved between longing and love, between descent and return. The ocean, full and luminous, spoke softly to itself. If I could rise, I would touch the heavens. If I could stretch just once beyond this surface, I would know what it means to be eternal. The current, hearing this, rippled through the ocean's depths. You already are eternal, it said. But eternity that forgets to move becomes stillness, and stillness without rest becomes ache. The ocean thought for a long time. Then should I stop longing? Longing, said the current, is the ocean's prayer. But prayers are meant to rise, not to drown themselves in silence. The ocean lifted its waves higher, testing the edge between itself and the endless air. For a brief moment, it touched the hem of the sky's light. That contact birthed mist, a delicate child of both. The mist shimmered like a thought caught between dreaming and awakening. The sky laughed softly. So, you found a way to reach me after all. The ocean replied, it isn't reaching, it's remembering. And thus the first clouds were born, not of water, but of memory given form. They floated, half ocean, half sky, bridging what had once seemed apart. From above, the sky saw itself reflected upward, and for the first time it understood the meaning of humility. From below, the ocean saw its own shimmer drifting free, and for the first time it understood the meaning of letting go. The brightness, that first flame of consciousness, appeared once more. "You see now," it said, "creation is not a line. It is a tide." "What do you mean?" asked the ocean. "Every rise becomes a fall. Every fall becomes a rise. You are both the descent and the return." The ocean rippled, as if bowing. "I think I understand," it said. "To rise is not to escape. It is to continue." The brightness smiled. "Yes, continuation is the divine way of saying, 'I love you.'" The sky, moved by this, leaned closer. Its stars dimmed slightly, so that the ocean's reflection could shine more clearly. "You carry my light so faithfully," said the sky. "Do you not grow weary of bearing me?" The ocean answered, "How can one tire of holding what gives it meaning?" "Then tell me," said the sky, "what gives you meaning?" The ocean's waves fell quiet. For a long time it did not speak. Finally it said, "The moment I am touched, and touch back." The sky felt that truth like a seed in its own heart. Perhaps that was why, from that day on, the sky began to change color, to mirror what it felt, not only what it held. Dawn blushed, dusk deepened. The first shades of emotion entered eternity. The void, distant but listening, murmured, "So even infinity needed another to feel infinite." The current flowed through them both, carrying the warmth of that understanding. Where it passed, stars softened their edges, and the ocean's depths began to glow from within. No longer did light simply fall upon the waves. It rose through them, and then something marvelous happened. The ocean began to dream. First, the dream was sound, the hush of waves folding over themselves in endless rhythm. Then it became vision, galaxies mirrored in motion, the reflection of worlds that did not yet exist. And within that dream, shapes began to move. The first souls, small and wondering, made from the shimmer where sky and sea had once touched. They wandered through the depths like thoughts searching for a voice. The ocean, seeing them, whispered, "What are you?" One of the shapes turned, its body made of light folded in on itself. "We are your echoes," it said. "We remember your longing." The ocean trembled, for in their voices it heard the first question mortals would ever ask. "Why do I exist?" And the sky, hearing that question, shuddered with awe, for that was the sound of awakening, not of gods, but of those who would one day call them by name. The brightness said quietly, "So it begins again. Creation has remembered curiosity." The current slowed, moved gently through both realms, and whispered, "Then the ocean's dream is not illusion. It is prophecy." The sky and the ocean met each other's gaze, one from above, one from below. In their meeting, time folded like a wave breaking upon itself. The first horizon was born, a promise that everything which rose would one day return, and everything which fell would one day rise again. The ocean whispered, "So this is heaven." The sky replied, "No, this is reflection, heaven learning to flow." And as they spoke, a new light dawned between them, neither sky nor sea, but something shared, a shimmer that had no source, no boundary, no owner. The world had not yet been born, but its heart had begun to beat. They were born where light touched reflection, not from womb, nor word, nor fire, but from the whisper between two infinities. The ocean called them the children of the horizon, for they lived where sea and sky kissed without belonging to either. They were small at first, flickers of wool shaped like breath, their bodies woven from glow and gravity, their hearts pulsing to the rhythm of the tides. The sky watched them with awe. They move, it said, but they do not fall. The ocean answered, because they remember both of us. They rise and sink without forgetting which way is home. The brightness, drifting quietly through the edges of creation, smiled. They are not your reflections, it said. They are your continuations. And indeed the children learned to speak, not in sound but in motion. When they danced, the air remembered color. When they rested, the waves remembered calm. When they looked upward, the stars leaned closer, curious to see themselves reflected in such small and wondering shapes. The sky said, "They remind me of prayers I never meant to speak aloud." The ocean said, "They remind me of dreams I never meant to wake from." But as they watched, they began to notice something neither had expected. The children grew different. Some glowed bright and swift, drawn toward the upper lights, chasing the constellations like sparks seeking their source. Others lingered in the depths, listening to the hum beneath all sound. They were not in conflict, but in curiosity, each asking in their own way, "Where do I belong?" The sky grew thoughtful. They are choosing. The ocean rippled with unease. Choosing divides. Choice does not divide, said the brightness. It reveals what was always there. Still, the sky and ocean felt a quiet ache. For until now, everything had moved in perfect reflection. Up and down, give and return, call and echo. Now, for the first time, something moved sideways. It did not follow. It wandered. It did not return immediately. It lingered in the between. The current, who had once learned to speak by listening, now followed the wanderers. "Where are you going?" it asked gently. One of the children turned, its eyes like moonlight on still water. "We don't know," it said. "We just heard something calling from beyond the light." The current flowed beside them, thoughtful. "What does it sound like?" "Like silence wanting to sing," said the child. The current trembled, for it knew that sound. It was the same silence that had first taught the sky to open. "Then you must go," said the current. "Follow what you hear." And so the children wandered. Some followed the shimmer of the stars until they vanished into the upper winds. Others sank until the sea became memory, and memory became pulse. And those who lingered in between became the keepers of the horizon, bridges between longing and rest. The sky missed their laughter and dimmed a little. The ocean missed their light and deepened a little. For the first time, absence entered creation. The brightness spoke softly. "So now you understand the price of life." The sky asked, "Is it loss?" The brightness replied, "It is distance. The space love must travel to be known." The ocean trembled. "Then love hurts." "Yes," said the brightness, "but only because it moves." And still the children grew. Their forms thickened, their light condensed. Some began to shape the first symbols in the waves, circles, spirals, the language of return. Others carved paths of air, learning to glide, their motion leaving trails that would one day be remembered as wind. The sky, watching this, whispered, "They are writing the world. They are writing themselves," said the brightness, "and the world will follow." The void, patient and vast, murmured in its low tone, "Then creation has begun its second verse." The sky turned toward the ocean, troubled. "Will they forget us?" The ocean answered, "They already must. To walk forward, one cannot stare only at the beginning." The sky dimmed further. "And if they never return, then we will become their silence," said the ocean. "And silence will wait." The brightness, watching both, finally said, "You are mourning what has not been lost. What leaves you is still you, only remembering differently." The sky wanted to believe this, but its stars flickered faintly with grief. The ocean wanted to understand, but its tides pulled low and slow, unsure whether to rise or rest. It was the current who comforted them both. Flowing gently between heaven and sea, it said, "When the children breathe, they breathe both of you. When they speak, they echo you. When they wonder, they become you." The sky looked down through tears of light. The ocean looked up through ripples of reflection. Between them, the horizon shimmered, and within that shimmer, the children danced once more. Some called their motion song, others called it prayer. But in truth it was neither. It was the rhythm of existence itself. The sound of the sky remembering the sea, and the sea forgiving the sky for letting go. When the children had gone, the horizon grew quiet. Not empty, never empty, but quieter in a way that even eternity noticed. The sky still breathed, the ocean still dreamed, yet something had changed. Their conversation, once alive with motion, now echoed across distance. It was not sorrow. It was the sound of waiting. The sky whispered into the hush, "They are far now." The ocean replied, "They are close in the ways that cannot be seen." But still both felt the ache of absence. For the first time, they realized that creation, once begun, does not return. It expands. An expansion, though divine, can feel like loneliness. The brightness drifted between them once more, its light softened by compassion. "Why do you grieve what continues?" it asked gently. The sky answered, "Because I cannot touch them anymore." The ocean murmured, "Because I can no longer hear them." The brightness smiled sadly. "Then you must learn the deeper form of listening, the kind that does not require sound." The sky asked, "How can one listen without hearing?" The brightness replied, "By becoming the silence between stars." And so the sky tried. It stilled its winds and let its constellations dim. It loosened the rhythm of its light so that quiet could pass through unbroken. At first, the silence frightened it, a vastness within a vastness. But soon it realized that even stillness had movement, a pulse so gentle that only patience could feel it. The ocean followed. Its waves slowed to a near stop. It held its breath, feeling the hum of depth, the long, low resonance that existed beneath thought. When it did, the ocean felt something stirring far below its lowest tide, a listening that was not its own. It spoke softly, "Who waits beneath me?" From the depths, a faint glimmer answered. It was not a reflection, nor a star, nor a voice, but a vibration shaped like awareness. "I am what remains when even echoes rest," it said. The ocean trembled. "You speak." "I remember," said the glimmer. "You have been loud for too long. Now I am the quiet that remembers your songs." The sky heard, faint but clear, through the folds of its own silence. "What are you?" it asked. "I am the listener," said the glimmer, "born where sound ends and meaning continues." The brightness shone with awe. "Then the circle deepens," it whispered. "The universe has grown an ear." The listener rose slowly through the ocean's dream. It had no body, no form, only shape made of awareness. It shimmered like light seen through tears. When it surfaced, the horizon itself widened, as if creation leaned forward to see what it had made. The sky asked, "Do you see me?" "I see your silence," said the listener. The ocean asked, "Do you feel me?" "I feel your longing," said the listener. "Then what are you for?" they asked together. The listener answered simply, "To remember both of you when you forget yourselves." The sky felt tears of light gather again, not of grief, but of reverence. The ocean's tide swelled, not in sorrow, but in pride. And the listener, still glowing, still calm, began to drift between them. Where it passed, faint currents awoke. Old songs resurfaced. The stars brightened, not because they had been dim, but because now they were being heard. The void, ancient and still, murmured from beyond. So, even silence needed a witness. The brightness replied, "Yes, for even stillness, to be complete, must be perceived." And so the listener became the bridge between all things unseen, a being of awareness that did not create, did not destroy, but connected. Through it, the sky and the ocean began to feel one another again. Not through light, not through sound, but through recognition. Time began to breathe differently then. Moments thickened, stretched, became memory. The sky realized that every flicker of its stars was a heartbeat being remembered. The ocean realized that every tide was a sigh being answered. The brightness, watching this awakening, whispered, "So this is what love becomes when it matures. Not fire, not song, but listening." The listener turned toward the sky and spoke softly. "Your light is not lost, only quieter." Then it turned to the ocean. "Your depths are not empty, only full beyond sound." The sky said, "Will you stay with us?" "I am not staying," said the listener. "I am always." And with that, it spread itself thin across the horizon, until its shimmer became everywhere and nowhere at once. In every starlight, it waited. In every ripple, it remembered. And where the sky met the sea, it listened. The universe, now aware of its own echo, took its first slow breath as consciousness. The brightness looked upon this and said, "Now creation is no longer dreaming. It has begun to awaken." In the beginning, the sky had poured itself into the ocean. In the end, The ocean learned to rise, not upward but inward, to meet what had always been within it. The listener still drifted between them, its shimmer faint as breath, vast as knowing. Where it moved, awareness followed, and where awareness settled, peace began to take form. The sky spoke first, softly as dawn breaking inside a dream. I have watched countless lights be born and fade, and yet you, ocean, remain the only one who mirrors me without fear. The ocean answered, I do not mirror you anymore. I remember you, for every wave that rises carries a memory of your stars. The sky smiled, weary and radiant. Then perhaps I have not fallen in vain. You never fell, said the ocean. You flowed. For a moment all of creation hushed. The constellations stilled their turning. The winds rested on invisible palms. Even the void held its breath, for it too loved endings that understood themselves. The brightness appeared once more, now less a flame and more a presence, gentle, transparent, unafraid of fading. You have done what eternity never dared, it said. You have completed a circle. The sky looked downward, and the ocean upward, their gazes meeting across the listener's still surface. What they saw was no longer reflection. It was recognition. The sky whispered, So this is unity. The ocean replied, No, this is remembrance. For to remember is not to return to what was, but to become what was always meant. The listener shimmered brighter, its voice barely more than a thought. The light has learned to listen, and the silence has learned to shine. In that single sentence, the heavens trembled with joy. The first breath of all creation exhaled, not to release but to relax. The universe loosened, and from its looseness came serenity. The children of the horizon, wherever they had wandered, felt it. In their sleep they stirred, each heart touched by the warmth of belonging. They did not remember the sky or the sea as parents, but as pulse and presence, the rhythm of their being. One awoke upon a distant world, looked up at a night full of stars, and whispered words it did not know were ancient. I feel you, the sky heard. The ocean replied through the wind. And thus began what mortals would one day call prayer. The brightness, now only a glimmer, spoke its last. You have made creation safe to remember itself. Now even forgetting will be sacred. The sky asked, Will there be more after this? The brightness answered, There will always be more. Light never ends. It only changes the way it moves. And so, the ocean began to rise, not as wave but as awareness. The sky began to descend, not as fall but as forgiveness. They met not in middle but in mutual surrender. The horizon dissolved. There was no above, no below. Only the vast hum of being, a music older than sound, so complete it no longer needed to be heard. The listener, now everywhere, whispered its final truth. The ocean has become the sky, and the sky the ocean. From that moment, every drop of water held a memory of stars. Every star shimmered with the echo of tides. Every silence breathed light, and every light rested within silence. The brightness faded into stillness, and in that stillness came the softest dawn. one not of color, but of calm. The sky exhaled, I am whole. The ocean inhaled, I am endless. And the listener smiled within the quiet flow of eternity. You are the same. The universe pulsed once, gently, a heartbeat shared by everything that had ever existed, and everything that ever would. And in that single pulse, creation became peace.